Welcome to another SV Lynx video.
This week we're going to be doing some more sanding, applying the fairing compound, sanding that, building the cradle for the port canoe, and then I'll be out later in the week to help cut the basalt and peel ply, and we're going to lay it all out in proper orientation, collate it, because Saturday we've got a big crew coming out to apply the basalt.
And although we've covered this in the past a little bit, I just wanted to reiterate why we're using basalt. And it's really quite simple. It comes down to two factors. The first is that it's stronger, more impact resistant, and slightly heavier. But because we are reducing the amount of the grams thickness of the basalt, that will reduce the amount of epoxy it takes to wet it out. And in the end, it will be stronger slightly, a little bit more impact resistant, and lighter. So we get those things. And for that, it was worth the money that we spent to make our hulls more armored against hitting something in the water, like a floating log, a shipping container that's fallen off some tanker, or even any object that just happens to be floating in the water, and we might hit it with our hulls. So we like the extra impact resistance, and for sailing purposes, you know, if you can take weight off of your catamaran, that's bonus on a performance cat.
Yeah.
So for that reason, we decided the basalt was the way to go. And if you're wondering about how you pronounce that, because I've had a couple of people mention it, in the US it's basalt, and in the UK it's basalt, so whichever one you like. So let's head over to the lot and we'll take a look at what we're going to do and get started on that. So Brian and I have been sanding both sides of the hull in the second round of our epoxy repairs, and it looks like that's pretty much going to be it. So just 2 applications and we've got the whole hull smooth. So we'll take a quick look at it all, feel the whole thing, but I think we're pretty much done, ready for basalt on Saturday. This is Monday, so we've got 4 days to prepare all of the cutting of all of the basalt, cutting of all of the peel ply, get it all set up, and ready for the team to arrive on Saturday and have everything ready to go. Also going to be a ton of cleanup because there's just so much dust around from all the sanding that we'll spend the next couple days just cleaning the whole yard area just to get it a lot less dust. We finished sanding the second layer of patches off. I told you that was probably it, but we inspected it and we're nitpicky and found, you'll just see a couple of dark spots on there. A couple little spots on both sides that we fixed. So we'll sand that off tomorrow. That won't take any time at all. It's just a couple little tiny spots, so no big deal. Now, we also showed you that we were fairing the port hull one more time with the large board for application. And that was only on one side of it. So today, since we can't mess with this one anymore, today we're going to go ahead and do sort of the final fill with the long board on the other side of this hull. So if you look, so you can see, I don't know if you can or not with a camera, but let's see if I can get a better angle here. There you can see sort of some of the dark spots that we did on this. It's a very thin coat because we're fixing 1.5 to 1/2 millimeter depressions here. This is very nitpicky because this thing to the hand, visually and to the hand, it feels smooth. But if I stick a board on here and take a look, it's pretty darn good in most of the spots, but there are just once in a great while a tiny little gap, and we just don't want to see that warble in the paint. So we're going to do one more round here of a very thin layer. All right, so Brian's mixed us up some fairing compound, and he'll apply it for me on there, and then I'll do some shoulder work here. Working out my arms a bit. Now mostly we're trying to do the lower sections down here. That section perfectly flat already. Yeah, you can really see some of these darker white spots along here versus the yellow, and those are those incredibly thin fills that we're trying to get right now. So I'm not too worried about down here because we have to sand all of this off to do the bond of the next board that goes on here and to tab it on. So down here doesn't really matter because we're going to be fixing that, so I'm not worried about the bottom here. It's really this section in the middle here that's the most concern to me. That was a good workout for both the legs and the arms. Doing squats the whole way, but well, there's a few little spots we'll fill in after it dries with a smaller spatula, but we've spanned these large gaps, whether they're this direction or the other direction, so pretty good. We're playing Tetris again today and moving our tables out from the center. We don't need them anymore in the middle. The next place we're going to need them is out here where we're going to build the cabin top, although that's not going to happen for a little while yet. And so what we're doing is we're going to stand some of them up, like this one over here, and some of them we're going to leave down like this so we can still use them as a work table. But eventually there'll be another table on this side over here, and then two side by side here, and two more side by side back over here, making a 26 feet by 18 feet, this in meters, and that's where we'll build our cabin top. Of course, we'll have to level it all and everything when we go to do that. Right now, we just want them out of the way for when we're going to be working on these two hulls for now, since we are done with the strip planking and we really don't need them. Now, once we're done building the cabin top, they will go back into the middle one more time, and that's when we're going to build the bridge deck that we raise up into the boat. But that won't be for quite some time. So the next thing is that the cabin top that we'll be building, so we're going to move them out of the way right now. So I'm going to go get some. When we were moving the port hull from one side over to the other, we used the bobcat to move all these cubes. But the truth is, that was just because it was there already, and why not save the human work? But they're not really that heavy, particularly the ones that don't have plywood on top of them yet. And those other two only had to go a fairly short distance. But as you can see, we can move these by hand with no problem at all whatsoever. Brian using a hand cart there on one end is okay. That gets that up, but you can see that I can just lift the other end without any real stress and walk it along. That way we didn't have to have the derouters bring their bobcat over here just for this. And this probably only took us about 20 minutes total to move all the cubes. And we stood them up on end here just to save some room, since we're not going to be using these ones for a few weeks. So this just gets them out of the way. Tapped it. All right, so that's why we built these modularly, so that we could move them around for different things. Now this one here is going to go up against this one eventually for the cabin top. We're going to leave it over here to leave a passage until we need that. This gives us some idea now of the size of the boat, because that's where the holes go. They, of course, flipped over, but this is where our salon would be, and cockpit behind there. So starting to look like a boat shape when they have two holes. It'll look even more so when we start putting those bulkheads across. Got a lot of work to go before that, though. We'll start fairing this hull, and we're on the next sanding stage on it. So we'll get to that soon. That one is ready for basalt. We have, I don't know, 5 little tiny patch spots that we'll sand tomorrow, but other than that, that's ready for basalt on Saturday. So we're ready to roll. And once the basalt's done, then we'll fair it on those forms. Won't move it. And once it's all faired and done, we're going to paint both, put copper coat on both, and then we'll do that flipping over and get rid of all those forms and move on to the big stuff, meaning the big panels, the big deck pieces, everything that starts making it look like a catamaran. Now that the cubes are out of the middle, got that taken care of, we're going to go ahead and start the basalt, which means we're going to put a layer around the front of this and a layer over the top. Again, like we did in the last hull, this is something that we've sort of added to the plan because we know just how much of the lamination we had to take off here. And this had no lamination on it. This is just foam. So we want some lamination there. So we're going to go ahead and wrap this and come over the top, and that'll give this some needed strength up in front. The rest of the things are great, and that the normal 3 layers of basalt on them will be fine. But we're going to add these 2 extra small ones, and we'll do that today, right now. Just the last sand to get it ready for this basalt we're going to stick on here. It's only going back about this far. So I'm going to clean it up now, and then we'll get to it. So we're chopping our first piece that goes around the nose. We're using 450 gram biaxial basalt. Okay, so this piece is going to wrap around the front like so. All right, we have our 2 pieces, so we're ready to mix up. Made up some honey consistency epoxy, which we're going to lay on here fairly thick. We make this lower layer honey consistency because we don't want it running down this vertical surface. It goes like 4 inches from the bottom, so like about there. Okay, you got that. We have our salt layers on the front here, so they wrap around. This goes over the top of that one. It goes back to about here, and that just gives that a little extra impact area there at the very nose of the boat, because this is a water line right there. So like I say, this is in addition to what we normally put, the full 3 layers that we go down the whole hull, and those will start clear back here, so this will get overlapped again. So it'll be plenty of strength up here on the front of the boat. Forgot to film the last part. We had to put peel ply on, so we've got our peel ply on wrapped around all sides, so that'll be good for when we peel it off to put on the second layer of basalt, third layer, all that good stuff. It's Thursday. It rained a little bit on Wednesday, so we swapped our day off days and it's back at it today. And we just take a look at the front here, pulled a little peel ply off, it looks good. But we can't work on the hull anymore because it's ready for basalt, which is going to happen 2 days from now. So that's done, other than cleaning it for right before we do it. We don't want to do that yet. So we need to work on something different today, and then we'll get to that on Saturday. So we have these cradles over here that we built for one side, but we don't have the cradles built for the other canoe. So we're going to build those today. So let's go get those pieces. Got it. So there's our pieces, and first we'll have to sort of tab them and glass them together, and then we'll coat them on the outsides with fiberglass and epoxy to make them weather the next little less than 2 years, hopefully. But need them waterproof, so we'll get to that. We already did that on those, so we'll just do it again. So all the pieces that go onto the hull behind us that we're cutting today for our big basalt day tomorrow, they're all trapezoidal shaped. So got to get them all pre-cut and numbered and sorted and ready so that tomorrow we don't have to figure any of this out. Brian and I are doing the measurement stuff, and Marianne is the official chopper. We're cutting all the 600 gram stuff right now, and then we'll cut the 450, then we'll cut the peel ply, and then we'll sort it all into a stack that goes right off onto the hull in order. That's the plan. And also we're numbering them in the one corner there, so again, if for some reason they get mixed up in any way, we have an orientation and an order in which they go. Basalt is beautiful stuff. The weave is spectacular, and it better be for $6,000 worth of this for these hulls. We want it nice. It's actually around 3,000 something. The other 2,800 is import duties and shipping and all that lovely stuff when you order from China. I can't talk too loud here because it's very early in the morning, but we have our crew. We've started down the hull, and we're laying our layers of basalt. So we put the first layer there, the second layer there. We overlap the two of them, and then we got peel ply on here as well. And we got our crew, and they're going to start marching all the way down. All right, guys, doing well, all good. So these are our mixing crew, my sister and her husband Mike, and my sister Rhonda, and Marianne's over there mixing, pouring all of the hardeners and thickeners and all that stuff, and then she hands them off over here, and they mix. So Rhonda's got a pure epoxy mix there, and Mike's here working on a honey mixture for the people who are ahead of the basalt. And this my cousin in the front of the camera. That was my cousin Trevor. Can't stop progress. He had to get something, so. All right, back to the other stuff. So this is the other side team over here. So this is getting the peel ply on this side. And that's it. We're at the stern of the boat. We have finished. And we had down to the last smidgen exactly of the epoxy that we needed. Yeah, we made it. So we're putting on the last pieces of peel ply right now. It's all done. We'll be back in 8 hours to put the third layer on, which is what they tell us at Schoening to do. So that's what we're doing.
Well, we did it. We got the basalt on the starboard hull, and it really went rather smoothly. We did have a couple of minor mismeasurements when we originally cut the basalt. So we had to do some small patches that we cut on the spot and applied, but it really didn't slow us down at all.
Right, and that was on the, what would be, once it flips over, the high portion and not down low where the impacts would be in the water anyway. But it doesn't matter because we fixed it and it's all good. And at the end of the boat, the second one she mentioned was just that we had a little bit of a short piece of peel ply that we just had to recut. So that was nothing. So that went very well. However, we did have one other thing that fortunately the Admiral here thought of a little bit ahead of time. Right when we were, Friday, and we're getting prepared for this, she said, it's going to be dark in the morning when we start.
At 6 a.m. in the morning.
The darn sun, it keeps changing. So, and she's right, because I checked when sunrise was, and the sunrise was at around 6:30, 6:45, and we were starting 6 a.m. sharp. So it was going to be pitch dark at that point. So we had to set up some lights initially. And of course, it was a Saturday morning, and we do have a couple of neighbors nearby there, so we had to be really quiet with everybody for that first hour or two while we were working. Fortunately, there's no power tools with the application of peel ply. It's all hand labor. It's just some mixing with and rolling on and setting down of cloth. So it's very quiet work, as long as I can keep the whole team from getting too boisterous
Chatty.
on there. And then the reason we had to start at 6, of course, is that it takes around 3 hours to lay that basalt down on the hull, and that's exactly what it took. And the problem is that there's a third layer that goes on. And according to the instructions from Schoenig, that needs to go on 8 hours later, no sooner than that. 8 hours after the first 2 coats in the peel ply. So we come back, pull the peel ply on the top there, and lay one single full-length piece. It's not really full length, but it's 30 feet of the hull, that goes over the top. It's on the section that would lay on the seafloor if we were drying out. So that's that 1/3 layer that goes on. It has to go on 8 hours later. Well, if we start at 6 a.m., we finish at 9, and then 8 hours later, we're getting to 5 p.m. And so what happened there was the sun set on us. So as we're working on that big layer, it got pitch dark again. So we had to have a couple of team members who were just holding floodlights following us down to light the hull as we went. And that was so dark that the footage just didn't really come out well, so I didn't put it on here. But it all worked out because Marianne mentioned that it was going to be dark, and I got all the floodlights set up ahead of time. So they were there, they were ready to go. So that actually turned out to be no real problem. So it all worked out excellently. So anyway, thank you to this week. We're going to thank all of the crew who showed up at 6 in the morning sharp on a Saturday to help us lay that basalt down, because we just can't do it with just, even the 3 of us couldn't do it. You can see that there's about 12 people it takes to lay that down in that 3-hour period, and it has to go down like that. Each of the different layers has to go within about 30 to 45 minutes of the previous one. And so there's this whole stacking of first and second layer. It just takes 3 hours, and it takes a lot of people. Oh, I wanted to mention one more thing about the crew. While you're watching that, you may have noticed a few crew just seems like they're standing around. They weren't. Each person had their job assigned to them. And some of them we didn't want getting epoxy on their hands because of what they were doing next. And so each person has their job. And so sometimes while one team was laying down the cloth, the other team who were going to be wetting it out were standing there waiting for them to be done. And then once they're wetting it out, the rolling team were standing. As soon as they were done getting it wetted out, then the rolling team would step in. So each person had their job, and they would wait to the moment that they needed to do it. So everybody was working at the speed they were supposed to, and we got it done exactly in the 3 hours. So it's all worked out well. So we thank those crew members, and we will thank all of you who have come and shared taken your time to watch our videos, because we do appreciate your viewership. And thanks to our patrons, again, who support us and help us keep this project moving forward. So we will have another video for you next week, and there's also going to be a patron-only exclusive video this week. And that one's going to be about a decision we're trying to make to do with the prop shaft and having to stop it at times. So, well, that's in that video. But again, thank you.
Thank you. And don't forget to like and subscribe and click on the bell icon to be notified of our next video.
And we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.